to order. Please rise and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, good evening, everybody. As we get ourselves organized here. I am going to come up to the podium. We have this is our last regular meeting in June before we begin our next term, first meeting of the year in July. So we are here to recognize Cynthia Mickelson in her last meeting. So I have a resolution that I'm going to read. Whereas Cynthia Mickelson has served the Sioux Falls School District 49-5 for the past 6 years, since July 2017, as a valued school board member and school board president. And whereas Mrs. Mickelson has, during these 6 years, ably served as board representative to the following committees: Calendar Committee, Southeast Technical Institute Council, sorry, there are a lot of words, I might stumble, Sioux Falls Education Foundation, Accessible Housing Board, Insurance Committee, Budget Review Committee, Chamber of Commerce, Facilities Task Force, Sioux Empire Leadership Council, Head Start Early Childhood Policy Council, Teacher of the Year, and Talent and Workforce, as well as a contributing member of the City County Schools meetings, legislative liaison, and on the negotiating teams for the board. And whereas Cynthia provided exceptional leadership for Sioux Falls and the whole state of South Dakota through her tenure as a school board member. Whereas Mrs. Mickelson provided leadership and significant guidance to the district's long-range financial planning, 5-year budget plan, while maintaining a high sense of fiscal responsibility and advocating strong, innovative academic programs. And whereas Cynthia, during her tenure, was instrumental and provided significant leadership during one superintendent transition that included national searches, interviews, and the ultimate hiring of best-in-class leaders. And whereas during her tenure on the school board, the school district completed construction of the new field house at Howardwood Field in 2017, as well as completing construction of Thomas Jefferson High School and Ben Rifle Middle School for their opening in the fall of 2021. Additionally, the Vet Tech addition at Edwood Center in 2020, and dental expansion and renovation at the Health Science Center in 2020 at Southeast Technical College, as well as the acquisition of the Zeal Building in 2022 for Southeast Technical College. And whereas Cynthia steadfastly served as board president during the pandemic while taking into consideration the best way to educate students safely and effectively in unprecedented times. Whereas Mrs. Mickelson encouraged a commitment to understanding and valuing diversity, as well as the importance of providing multiple pathways for student success while advocating for children with special needs. And whereas Cynthia's commitment to excellence in education has enhanced opportunities for countless children, and her commitment to increasing involvement of citizens in the decision-making process regarding educational programs has contributed to the overall improvement of the district's instructional program. And whereas Mrs. Mickelson has ably served in these capacities at considerable personal sacrifice and with outstanding dedication to placing children first in all of her decisions, whether considering budgets, boundaries, busing, calendars, curriculum, or policies. And whereas we, the school board, wish to express deep appreciation and thanks to Cynthia Mickelson on behalf of the members of the school board, the administration, and the entire school district. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the resolution be spread upon the minutes of the meeting of the school board of the Sioux Falls School District 49-5, held Monday, June 26, 2023, and a copy of the resolution be given to Cynthia Mickelson. Whereupon a motion was made by?
So moved.
And seconded by?
Myself.
With a majority vote of the school board adopting the foregoing resolution. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. That passes. Cynthia, please, would you come up? We've got a gift for you. I'm going to save some of my comments for later, but just.
And this is your copy. Thank you. Can I just say something, please? First and foremost, all of what she talked about in the resolution was a team effort from you guys for sure, because you've been on the board, new board members as well as the entire Sioux Falls School District. So thank you for allowing me and the community of Sioux Falls. Thank you for electing me to serve in this capacity. It has been one of the greatest things I've done in my life, and I'm going to miss it a lot, but I'm not going to be absent, and I'm not going to be a stranger. So thank you very much, and I look forward to see what the school district does in the future.
I think we've got a good news report. Also, nope, that was our good news report. All right. Well, so with nothing else with that, I just wanted to add my own personal comments. Cynthia, just working with you over the last 6 years has just been a great honor. You are steadfast in your beliefs that we are the best school district in the country. And you prove it every day with the work that you do and your dedication to the students that we serve in this community. And just personally, so glad that we've become friends. And but I know that that won't end here. So look forward to collaborations in the future, and knowing that you will not be silent, and that'll be appreciated.
That's not my take.
Thank you. All right. Anything else before we move on? Okay. We are going to move on to approval of the minutes of the meeting held on June 12th, 2023. Can I get a motion and a second, please?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed, same sign. That motion passes. We do not have any persons wishing to address the board on either non-agenda or agenda items. So we'll move on to item 8, approval of agenda. Can I get a motion and a second, please?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That passes. We had no new conflicts of interest. So moving on to item 10, approval of the consent agenda. Can I get a motion and a second, please?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. That passes. Item 11, supplemental consent agenda, approval of claims to Sanford Health. Can I get a motion and a second, please?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 That motion passes with one abstention from Board Member Ryder. And then items 11B, approval of claims to Avera. Can I get a motion and a second?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Nope, I take that back. Sorry. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. That motion passes with one abstention from myself. And moving on to the reports of the superintendent.
Yes, tonight we have a couple of different things to take care of. The first is going to be an update on our language proficiency report from Sarah Clausen. As she gets her PowerPoint up, this is an area where every year is a little different. And when we look at academic achievement, we look through a little bit different lens than we do with language proficiency. And the number of students every year changes who may be in a program, the rate of progression. But the other thing that's different is what level of proficiency students come to us with when they are enrolled in an EL program. And so when we look at this, we have to change up just a little bit how we interpret that data. So Sarah's going to help us with that tonight as she presents her information.
Yes. Thank you so much for the time to update you on what's happening in the EL world. Just a little background that is helpful when we talk about the data. South Dakota belongs to the World Class Instructional Design and Assessment Consortium, also known as WIDA. There are 41 states and territories that are part of this consortium, and they provide not only the assessment, but they also do a lot in the world of research and best practice in how to support English learners, as well as professional learning for all educators in that area as well. The name of the assessment, the English Language Proficiency Assessment that our students take, is called Access for ELLs 2.0. This is an annual assessment. It assesses the 4 language domains: listening, speaking, reading, and writing, and then all of those come together in a composite score. Any student who is identified as an English learner has to take this proficiency test every year. Our window in South Dakota is about the last week of February through right after President's Day break in February. So we are very busy about that time of year, getting all 2,700-ish students tested in that window. The proficiency levels range from a level 1, it doesn't go lower than that, and a level 6 is the highest that it goes, and it comes in tenths of a point increments on the way up. And this is the score that we use to determine if a student has enough language to be successful in the mainstream classroom. So in South Dakota, our exit criteria is a composite of a 5.0, or any student who gets a 4.0 composite on the Access, but also reaches a 3 or a 4 on the South Dakota ELA assessment would exit. And unique to South Dakota, EL growth towards exiting is 10% of the school and district's accountability on their school report card. So in 2022-2023, in that window, we had 2,689 students identified as English learners who participated in the assessment. So that was 2,677 regular assessments and then 12 alternate assessments. So any student who would be taking alternate South Dakota assessments would also then take the alternate Access assessment. Right now, South Dakota does not have exit criteria for any student who takes the alternate assessment. So if they take that assessment, they can't exit. And on the last day of school, just as an interesting note, we had 2,731 EL students. So that many kind of flowed more towards the positive side just in that last quarter of school. So we'll look at lots of different data surrounding this assessment, but here's how it looks compared to last year as far as growth. So in each domain, writing, reading, speaking, listening, and then composite, you can see how students' average growth compared in 2021-22 and 2022-23. The next part that we look at is how many exited. So this is a percentage of students that exited, broken down by elementary, middle, high school, and then our total exiting rates. And then we went back 5 years for that. And then this one, for those of us that love data, this is like my favorite chart, but it takes a little interpreting. So when a student enters and then they take their very first Access test in the spring, that score, their very first score, determines how many years they get to exit. So if they score a 1, they would get 5 years. If they take that in 2023, their projected exit year would be 2028, if that makes sense. If they get more like a 3, then they only get 3 years to exit. So this is how many students exit cohort year took the test this year. So if you look down in 2023, We had 21% of our students who were projected to exit this year, exit in this year. Next one. All right, all of that data, that including our ELD curriculum study, meant we had a team that came together to just take a really deep dive of, is what we're doing working? That was our question. So in July of 2022, we had a team come together that met almost monthly through about March of this year. And we followed our MTSS problem-solving process. In July, we looked at all of our data. We looked at graduation rates, we looked at exiting rates, we looked at how they're doing on South Dakota assessment, math, and ELA. And all of that compared to students who have never been EL, as well as students who have exited the program. Once we looked at all that data, we did an ISIL matrix. So we came up with hypotheses. Why does this data maybe say what it's saying? And we put those hypotheses in, is it instruction, is it curriculum, is it environment, or is it the learner? And had a long conversation about it. And the team decided that our hypothesis was that if we could support our classroom teachers in best practices for supporting English learners, all of our English learners would do better. Our next step was to read research in the area of best practices for English learners. Lots of that included things that came from WIDA. Our next step was to develop, okay, now we know what we want to do. How are we going to do that? So for next year, in 2023-24, we have a co-planning and co-teaching pilot that will take place in 5 locations: Annie Sullivan, Laura B. Anderson, Oscar Howe, Ben Rifle, and Washington High School. And co-teaching is not something that's new, especially in the world of special ed, but it is a little new for English learners. And so what we learned was co-planning was essential to that co-teaching. So that's why both are in the title, because co-planning has to come with co-teaching. So throughout next year, we will learn a lot. And some of the data that we'll collect for those pilot schools include our MAP growth scores for those in and not in the pilot, our South Dakota assessment scores, our WIDA access scores, and then of course, just watching and talking to teachers and administrators to see how it's going. We got to have the most amazing training. On June 6th and 7th, we had Dr. Andrea Honingsfeld in town, who actually wrote the book for how to co-teach for English learners. And these are just a few photos from that 2-day session. I'll just mention I had 2 teachers come up to me after the training, 1 elementary, 1 secondary, so it was covered by both of whom who have been in the world of EL and education a long time. And both of them said, Sarah, this was the best training we've ever been to. And we're really, really excited about trying this pilot. So that was affirming. What questions can I answer? Questions? Yes.
Sorry, thank you. So what year did the state change from 4.5 to 5 for that WIDA exit exam? Do you remember?
4.5 to 5, I would have to check on the exact year. We've had multiple criteria. At one point it was 4.7 and 4.5 in reading and 4.0 in writing.
Just curious in looking in back years and
It was
comparison.
probably about 2017, I think.
That's what I was guessing. And then for the supports for the teachers in the classroom besides co-parenting, or co-teaching, I'm sorry, co-teaching and co-planning, did any other ideas arise, or did teachers have any other ideas that they would like to see in supports for it?
I mean, lots of things surrounding PSYOP which we already have lots of training on and deepening the tools that our teachers have. But the reason they came to this co-teaching and co-planning is because we have SIOP experts teaching on their own, and they really wanted that side-by-side teaching, that practice to happen at the same time as some built-in PD for this is how we can do this together.
Were any of our families in EL also surveyed, maybe to see what other supports they might need at home or with this school that could help with their students?
Sure. I mean, we did lots of listening sessions with different groups throughout last year. And this is actually something we heard from parents the question was, if my student already is working on learning English, why are they only with students who also are working on learning English? So having them a little more integrated was something they had asked for.
Thank you.
I was just going to comment back a few slides when you had the comparison between this year and last year and the bar graphs for growth. Speaking was obviously one of the lower ones, and having a student who has been learning a second language for the last 11 years, that is not abnormal for anybody that's learning another language. I think that production is the hardest part. So you'll get people who score amazing on an AP language test, but their biggest struggle is still speaking. And so I just wanted to point that out, because sometimes you look at that and you're like, oh, look, we're trying to teach them to speak English. That's the lowest one. But I think that's a lagging indicator of they still can understand and they can speak, but English is hard. Like if you just compare it to any other language that maybe your kids have studied, and it is like, it's hard.
It is.
And so I think I don't want to take away from that and look at that and say that we should be doing better. Yes, we should always be doing better, but I think that's also an expected kind of result of just the language production in general. So
I'd say that added on to that, much like our Spanish immersion students, when they take an assessment and they're speaking academically, that is this assessment too. It's how can they speak to a math prompt and how can they speak to a social studies, ELA and science prompt. It's not just having a conversation, it's that deeper level of that academic language. It's difficult.
All right, any other questions for Sarah? All right, thank you, Sarah. Can I get a motion and a second to acknowledge the English language proficiency update?
so moved.
Second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion passes. Moving on to the review and revision of the Sioux Falls School District policies, regulations.
One to the podium.
Do you have a PowerPoint for us?
I don't. I'll be quick. Good evening. I'm bringing forward 5 policies and their accompanying regulations on behalf of the Policy Review Committee. With only reference changes to the policies and minor changes to the accompanying regulations, these are up for board approval tonight on a review revise in accordance with policy BG. The first policy up is JJH, student travel. And the change here is just a update to the regulation to add out-of-season activity trips. Second policy, JRA, includes some minor changes to the regulation regarding retention of active and permanent student records. Policy EFD are changes to the regulation to allow the district to cover the costs of reduced price meals for students, and then some changes to donated funds and the referenced amounts in that regulation. Policy ECAB, access to grounds and buildings, just includes some minor reference changes. And then finally, policy KF, changes to the regulation to make some adjustments to facility use priorities and then the scheduling process for using our district facilities. With that, I'd ask for approval of the review revision of these 5 policies and their regulations.
Can I get a motion and a second, please?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. That motion passes. Thank you. Anything else for the good of the order before we adjourn? Quick meeting tonight. Okay, all right. Can I get a motion and a second to adjourn, please?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye,
Aye.
opposed, same sign. We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.